you have the CNC running in the background?
Yeah, we basically just keep it running all day long to help, making props that we're working on. Thank you.
How many of these pieces were cut out on the CNC?
Everything.
You're going to be making more than one of these.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of the benefit of having the CNC is that it can mass produce while you guys...
While we're doing something else.
Now, is the CNC the only foam cutting tool that you use?
We actually end up using other foam cutting tools for pieces of what we're doing. Part of our design is around the things we can easily build with the CNC. Brian, explain how you made the bevel for this.
Well, first I cut out some circles, and then they basically put them back in the thing that they were cut out in, and then cut as if there were big circles cutting out of it. There are 3. Oh. So I basically laid the part back in on its side and cut out circles from that part.
Okay.
So
and then the goal then is to make something that, without a lot of fiddling, it fits perfectly.
Yeah, it fits this contour and it fits around that at the same time.
So when you're designing something like this, one thing that you try to keep in mind is what can you cut on the CNC to make it easier?
Mm-hmm.
Right, that is definitely part of it.
Have you ever used this machine before this project?
No, it's been maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
How was it? How was the learning process for you? The learning curve?
Pretty simple. I read through the instructions that Joe wrote, picked it up, learned how to do the drawings. You can use Adobe Illustrator. I was using Inkscape, which is actually a free version,
nice.
illustrating program. So
you like free?
Yeah. So it produces the same kind of vector output as Adobe Illustrator.
That's
so
great. Yeah.
Just save it as a DXF. This thing turns the DXF into G-code, which is what all CNC machines use, well, most of them.
So what's going on here with this? I mean, where's it?
Well, you can see right here, this pattern. Dottie just finished cutting out this pattern on this big, thick piece of foam, and now she's going to take the foam off, and I think we need to get out of her way so she can take the foam off the machine.
So this is the reveal.
This is the finish.
So this is 20-inch thick foam that I'm using right here.
Oh, look at that!
So this is a Canon bore.
Wow.
So this is Canon bores.
Is this where the cannonball rolls down?
Right.
Okay.
So it's what makes up the middle part of that thing.
Okay.
So that's the Canon bore. And so I'm cutting out several of those. But,
The big circles are for something
right.
else?
So I just nest them. This inside circle is just another Canon bore.
So you definitely maximize the space that you have
I
here.
do. I'll use this piece for part of the Gatling gun there. So that's what this is for.
You've actually got 3 different props
On one piece of
on
foam.
one pice of foam that you're cutting out.
Because, you might as well maximize this.
Yeah.
So I've got two
milk cans.
pieces of the milk can. I've got several pieces of the Canon. Yeah, you just kind of have to plan it out. So like on these Gatling guns, you can see there, right there is the body of it. It just takes, a little bit of creativity.
Yeah.
Those slide into these. Like that.
Oh, okay. So if you guys didn't have this machine, how long do you think this whole process would take with how many props you have to make? Not just the different types, but like 20 of the cannons.
Oh, it wouldn't be economically feasible.
Yeah.
When we did just the prototype of the milk can and cut it all out by hand and all the parts out by hand, that took me close to a week to do. And using the machine, we can do it. We can do at least like 2 or 3 a day, probably more. We haven't really tested that yet. If you're doing anything like lettering on a sign or you're doing any kind of large prop, you have to consider, the time you have to invest to come up with your patterns and stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's a little bit trial and error because this has a certain inner diameter, and then when I made the piece to go in here, that I made the outer diameter match that. Well,
and that takes
it
time.
was loose because the hot wire takes a little bit off here and a little bit off the outside. So I learned, always just size it. For anything fitting inside something else, size it a little bit bigger.
Like if your parts are only an inch thick, you could stack up a whole bunch. and make a whole bunch at the same time.
Yeah.
So you could, really boost your production.
10 2-inch thick pieces of foam as it takes to cut one.
Is when you said, could you do this without the machine? Well, you could do stuff cut out by hand, but you wouldn't get the precision that you get on the machine. You wouldn't be able to make things nest inside other things. Or if
Yeah.
you did, how could you make something like this? This would, if you had 20 years of sculpting experience, maybe you could do something like this. But
Yeah.
I had a week of experience on the computer, and I was, I can do something like this.
That's amazing.
So it's all the precision work gets done by the machine. You just draw it on the screen, and it takes over. You don't have to have a steady hand. You don't have to be a sculptor. You don't have to you don't have to be good with clay or anything like that.